Okay, so today we're diving deep into Visa's future, and we're ditching the crystal ball for this one.
Oh, what are we using then?
We're using their Q4 2024 earnings call as our guide. It's like a sneak peek into the minds of a financial giants, where they're placing their bets.
That's a great way to put it. And what's really fascinating is we get to see the questions that analysts are asking.
Right.
These are the people who live and breathe finance.
Exactly.
So their questions give us a real glimpse into what the industry is buzzing about.
It's like having Wall Street whisper their secrets directly to us.
Mm.
So to set the stage, we've got insights from CEO Ryan McInerney and CFO Chris Suh. What stood out to you from their comments in the Q&A?
Well, first off, Visa had a stellar Q4.
Yeah.
Their revenue hit $9.6 billion. That's a 12% jump from last year. And it's well above what analysts were predicting.
Wow.
Their core business is clearly thriving.
Yeah, McInerney really highlighted how deeply embedded Visa is in global commerce. I mean, think about it. Over 4.6 billion cards, 150 million merchant locations, billions of digital tokens.
Yeah.
It's practically everywhere you want to pay.
Exactly. They are everywhere. But that doesn't mean they're just sitting back and relaxing. They're actively looking beyond those traditional cards.
You're talking about Visa A2A, right?
Yes.
Their account-to-account payment system.
Yeah.
I'll admit, at first I was a little bit confused.
Okay.
How is this different from a simple bank transfer?
It's a good question. Imagine this. You need to pay a bill. You want to send money to a friend, you want to shop online, and instead of having to mess around with bank details, you can just do it all directly from your account with Visa's trusted security and reach. That's the promise of Visa A2A.
So they're not just hopping on the A2A bandwagon. They're really building up a high-speed express lane.
Precisely. And they're going even further. In 2025, they're launching something called flexible credentials. Now picture this. You have a single Visa credential, and it unlocks multiple payment options. Pretty cool, huh?
Okay, so it's all about options and staying ahead of the curve. But let's talk growth. Where is Visa putting its energy to keep this momentum going?
Well, Visa Direct is a big part of that.
Okay.
These real-time payment transactions, they surged by a whopping 38% in Q4, reaching an incredible 2.8 billion transactions. It seems people really want that instant gratification when it comes to moving money, and Visa Direct delivers that.
And it's not just individuals driving this growth,
Yeah.
right? Commercial volume is also up 5%, particularly in that B2B travel sector. They even secured a major virtual card issuing deal with JP Morgan Chase in Europe.
That's right. What's fascinating is how Visa is really strategically targeting specific sectors for growth.
Yeah.
We're seeing increasing adoption of their B2B Connect platform by banks globally, which just goes to show their reach extends far beyond consumer payments.
All of this sounds incredibly promising. But let's face it, no company is immune to challenges. What sort of headwinds is Visa facing right now?
Well, for one, they're navigating a Department of Justice lawsuit alleging anti-competitive practices in the U.S. debit card market.
Oh, right.
It's a significant challenge and one they're taking very seriously.
And it's not just legal battles they have to worry about. The rise of those pay-by-bank solutions, like what Walmart is doing, poses a potential threat to Visa's dominance. How concerned are they about this?
While they acknowledge the competition, they don't seem to be hitting the panic button just yet.
Okay.
They believe that pay by bank isn't really a new concept. It's been around for a while, and they're actively working on strategies to remain competitive in this evolving landscape.
So it's like a bring-it-on attitude with a touch of, we've seen this all before.
You could say that, but even with this confidence and their innovative spirit, analysts weren't shy about grilling them during the earnings call.
Right.
There were some tough questions.
What were the analysts particularly interested in? What kind of concerns were they raising?
Well, one of the main points they probed was the sustainability of commercial volume growth. CFO Chris Suh expressed confidence in the long-term opportunity there.
Sure.
He expects it to actually outpace consumer volume growth, especially within that B2B space.
Okay, and with all the buzz around open banking, I'm sure the analysts were curious about that as well.
Of course, especially with the CFPB's final rule on open banking having just come out, they wanted to know how it would impact Visa, particularly their Tink platform, which specializes in data aggregation.
So is open banking a friend or foe in Visa's eyes?
McInerney framed it as an opportunity.
Okay.
He stressed the importance of security and trust in open banking and how Visa's well-established brand and expertise could be valuable assets as this landscape evolves.
So they're aiming to be the safe and reliable haven in a world that could potentially become quite chaotic.
Precisely. They want consumers to feel confident sharing their data, knowing that Visa is involved. It's a strategic move to build that trust.
It sounds like they're playing the long game. Okay, so we've talked about their core business, their push beyond cards, their growth engines, and some of the hurdles they're facing. What does it all mean? Where is Visa headed, and what should we be watching for?
Well, Visa has given us a glimpse into their roadmap. They're anticipating high single-digit to low double-digit growth in adjusted net revenue for fiscal year 2025.
Not bad at all, but I have a feeling there's a but coming.
You know it. There's always a catch. They're expecting incentives to rise significantly in 2025 due to a large number of renewals taking effect. So while revenue is projected to grow, profitability might be a bit tighter.
So it's a bit of a balancing act. What else should we be keeping an eye on?
Their product pipeline is what they call backloaded, meaning those big new products and services are slated to launch later in the year, which could impact revenue growth in the latter half of 2025. It's like they're saving the best for last.
It makes you wonder what they have up their sleeve. Was there anything from this earnings call that really caught you off guard? Anything that surprised you?
You know what surprised me? The emphasis on AI. McInerney specifically highlighted how generative AI is being implemented across the company, from engineering to accounting to sales to boost productivity.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty forward-thinking. It's not just about incorporating AI into their products, but actually weaving it into the fabric of their operations to make everything more efficient.
Exactly. And he also mentioned how AI is a key differentiator for their new products and services. It's clear they're betting big on AI being a core part of their future.
That's fascinating. But let's bring it back down to earth for a second. How does all of this impact the average person? Someone like you or me.
Think of it this way. All of these innovations, from A2A payments to flexible credentials and AI-powered security, they're all designed to make our lives easier and more secure.
Okay, easier I get, but more secure. With all this data floating around, it makes me a little uneasy.
I understand. And that's where Visa's focus on security comes in. They're trying to build trust by offering those cutting-edge fraud prevention and data protection tools.
So it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Convenience versus control.
You got it. And it's a trade-off that we all need to consider as these new payment technologies become more widespread.
Okay, so we've covered Visa's present, their near future, but what about the bigger picture?
Ah, the bigger picture. Now that's where things get really interesting. As Visa ventures further into these new territories, like A2A payments and open banking, it makes you wonder about the future of those traditional cards.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Are they going to become like relics of the past? I mean, why even bother carrying a physical card anymore when you can pay with your phone or even your watch these days?
It's a good question. And the answer might not be as clear-cut as we think. Those cards might not disappear entirely, but I think their role could definitely evolve. Maybe it'll become more of a backup option or a specialized tool for certain types of transactions.
So like that emergency credit card you keep tucked away just in case.
Exactly. Or think about business travelers. They're relying more and more on virtual cards to manage their expenses.
So it's not necessarily a cards versus the world situation. It's more like this blending of options where the lines between different payment methods just start to blur.
That's a great point. And that's precisely what Visa seems to be aiming for. Remember those flexible credentials we talked about earlier? That's a perfect example of how they're creating this seamless experience across different payment types.
It's like they're building a universal translator for the world of payments.
I like that analogy. It doesn't matter how you choose to pay as long as you're doing it through Visa.
But all this innovation has to come at a price, right? Developing new technology, battling lawsuits, fending off competitors. It must be expensive.
You're absolutely right. And that's where their focus on efficiency becomes so crucial. Remember McInerney talking about leveraging AI to boost productivity across the entire company?
Yeah.
That's not just some trendy tech initiative.
Right.
It's a strategic necessity for them to stay ahead.
So they have to be agile and efficient to navigate this increasingly complex world.
Absolutely. They're facing pressure from all sides. Regulators, competitors, and consumers who want more options and they want lower costs.
It's a high-stakes game.
Yeah.
And Visa seems determined to play it by their own rules.
What strikes me is that they're not just reacting to all these changes, they're actively trying to shape the market. They're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with payments.
They're not just following the trend, they're setting it.
And that's a powerful position to be in, but it also comes with a lot of responsibility.
Responsibility. In what way?
Well, as Visa becomes even more deeply ingrained in our financial lives, The decisions they make carry more weight. Their actions impact us as individuals and society as a whole.
You're right. It's not just about profits. It's about wielding that power responsibly.
Exactly. They have to think about the ethical implications of their innovations. For instance, how can they ensure that their AI-powered systems are fair and unbiased? How do they protect our data privacy in an increasingly interconnected world?
Those are tough questions. And honestly, I don't know if I have the answers.
I don't either, but it's important to keep asking those questions and to hold companies like Visa accountable for their actions.
It's like that famous Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. And that's something that all of us should remember as we navigate this ever-evolving landscape of finance and technology.
Okay, so we've explored the business side of things, the competitive landscape, the potential threats and opportunities. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the human element.
The human element, what do you mean by that?
Well, at the end of the day, it's people who are using these payment systems, it's people who are making those transactions, it's people who are driving these trends. What does all of this mean for us as individuals?
That's an excellent point. It's easy to get lost in the numbers and the technology, but we can't forget that real people are on both sides of every single transaction.
And those people have needs and desires and fears and motivations that shape their financial behavior.
Absolutely, and that's where psychology comes into play. Understanding how people think about money, how they make financial decisions, how they respond to different incentives,
Right.
that's essential for designing products and services that really connect with users.
So it's not just about building the most advanced tech platform. It's about crafting an experience that feels intuitive, secure, and empowering.
Exactly, and that's what makes this field so fascinating. It's this constant interplay between technology, economics, and human behavior.
Speaking of human behavior, I've noticed that people seem to really crave more control over their finances these days. They want to manage their money on their own terms, using tools and platforms that really suit their needs.
That's a key trend driving a lot of the innovation we're seeing in the payment space. It's all about personalization, customization, and empowering users.
And that's where open banking really comes into play, right? Giving people the ability to share their financial data with those third-party apps and services to create a more tailored experience.
Precisely. It's about breaking down those traditional walls between banks and fintech companies to create a more open and collaborative ecosystem.
So instead of being limited by what your bank offers, you can pick and choose the best tools from a variety of providers.
And those providers can then use that data to develop even more personalized and innovative solutions. It's a win-win for everyone involved.
Except maybe for the banks. They're suddenly facing a lot more competition.
That's true. But competition is ultimately a good thing, right? It forces everyone to step up their game, to offer better products and services, and to be more responsive to what their customers actually want.
I suppose you're right, but it can also be a bit overwhelming for consumers, having to sift through all these options and figure out which ones are trustworthy.
That's a valid point, and that's where I think companies like Visa can play an important role. They can act as curators,
Right.
guiding consumers through this increasingly complex financial world.
By vetting providers, setting standards, and just providing that level of trust and security that people need to feel comfortable.
Exactly, like a trusted guide in a brand new territory.
I like that analogy. So in a way, Visa is becoming more than just a payments network. They're evolving into a financial ecosystem, a one-stop shop for all your financial needs.
That's a bold statement, but I think you might be onto something. They are moving beyond just simple transactions and into this much broader realm of financial services.
And that brings up another interesting question. What are the limits of Visa's ambition? Where do they draw the line?
That's the million-dollar question. Only time will tell, but judging from what we're seeing now, they're not afraid to push those boundaries.
They're not just playing the game, they're rewriting the rules as they go.
And that's what makes this whole space so dynamic and exciting to follow. Who knows what the future holds, but one thing is certain. Visa will be a major force shaping it.
This deep dive has been fascinating. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the specifics of Visa's Q4 earnings to those broader trends influencing the future of payments.
It's amazing how much insight you can get from a single earnings call, isn't it? It's like a window into the inner workings of this global financial giant.
And it's not just about the numbers. It's about the stories behind those numbers.
Right.
The innovations, the challenges, the people who are actually driving all this change.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so captivating. It's not just about money. It's about how money shapes our world, how it affects our lives, how it influences our interactions.
Okay, we've talked about those macro trends, the big picture stuff. But let's zoom in for a second and focus on something a bit more personal.
More personal. I like that. What do you have in mind?
We've talked about how Visa is trying to empower individuals with more financial control. But I'm curious about the other side of that coin.
The other side. You mean the potential downsides, the risks.
Exactly. More control also means more responsibility. What happens when people make mistakes, or fall victim to scams, or simply don't have the financial literacy to manage their money effectively?
That's a critical point. As we embrace all of these new technologies, we can't forget about that human element. People aren't always rational. We make emotional decisions. We're susceptible to biases. We can be easily misled.
And in a world where those financial transactions are becoming increasingly frictionless,
Yeah.
it's easier than ever to make those impulsive purchases, overspend, and end up in debt.
It's a legitimate concern, and one that companies like Visa need to address. They have a responsibility to promote financial literacy, educate users about the risks, and to design systems that are resilient to human error.
So it's not just about making those payments easy, it's about making them safe and responsible.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between innovation and consumer protection.
And that's a challenge that goes far beyond any single company. It requires collaboration between governments, regulators, financial institutions, tech companies.
It's a shared responsibility, and one we need to take very seriously if we want to build a financial system that's truly inclusive, sustainable, and beneficial for all.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the potential pitfalls, the risks involved in this brave new world of payments. Let's not end on a pessimistic note, though.
Absolutely. There's also a lot to be excited about.
Exactly. What are some of those positive outcomes that you think could emerge from all of this? What are some opportunities we should really be embracing?
Well, for starters, think about the potential for financial inclusion.
Financial inclusion, you mean providing more people with access to financial services?
Exactly. For people in developing countries or underserved communities, access to those basic financial services, bank accounts, credit, insurance, can be truly life-changing.
We can help them build businesses, invest in education, save for the future.
Precisely. And technologies like mobile payments, A2A transfers, open banking, all of these are making it easier and cheaper to deliver those services to people who have historically been excluded.
So it's not just about convenience for those of us who are already connected. It's about expanding the system to include more people.
That's a powerful vision, and one that Visa is actually actively pursuing through investments and initiatives promoting financial inclusion around the world.
That's great to hear. What else are you particularly inspired by in terms of their efforts?
I'm also really excited about AI's potential to revolutionize fraud prevention and cybersecurity.
We touched on that a bit earlier, but honestly, I'm still a bit skeptical. It seems like every time we come up with new security measures, the bad guys find new ways to crack them.
True, it's a never-ending arms race. But AI brings a whole new weapon to that fight. It can analyze massive amounts of data, identify patterns that humans might miss, and catch fraudulent activity in real time.
So it's like having a superpowered security guard monitoring your every transaction.
Exactly. This could significantly reduce financial crime, protect consumers, and just make the whole system more secure.
Okay, I'm starting to see the upside here. It's not all doom and gloom. There are some genuinely positive outcomes that could come from all of this.
Absolutely, and that's what keeps me optimistic. Yes, there are challenges and risks, but there's also this immense potential to create a better future, a more equitable and inclusive financial system that works for everyone,
That's a vision worth striving for.
and one that Visa is actively helping to bring to life.
Okay, we've talked about the potential pitfalls, the risks involved in this new world of payments, but let's not end on a downer.
Agreed. There's plenty to be excited about.
Exactly. What are some of the positive things that you think could come out of all of this? What are some of the opportunities we should be looking forward to?
Well, for starters, consider the potential for financial inclusion.
Financial inclusion, you mean giving more people access to financial services?
That's right. For people in developing countries or underserved communities, access to basic financial services, things like bank accounts, credit, insurance, can be life-changing.
It can help them start businesses, invest in education, save for the future.
Precisely. And technologies like mobile payments, A2A transfers, and open banking are making it easier and cheaper to provide these services to people who have historically been excluded.
So it's not just about convenience for those of us who are already plugged in. It's about expanding the system to include more people.
That's a powerful vision, and it's one that Visa is actively pursuing through investments and initiatives that promote financial inclusion globally.
That's fantastic to hear. What else are you particularly inspired by when it comes to their efforts?
I'm also really excited about the potential for AI to revolutionize fraud prevention and cybersecurity.
We talked about that briefly before, but honestly, I'm still a little skeptical. It seems like every time we come up with new security measures, the bad guys find new ways to crack them.
True, it's a constant cat and mouse game, but AI offers a powerful new weapon in that fight. It can analyze huge amounts of data, identify patterns that humans might miss, and detect fraudulent activity in real time.
So it's like having a superpowered security guard watching over every transaction you make.
Exactly. This could drastically reduce financial crime, better protect consumers, and make the entire system more secure.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential upside. It's not all doom and gloom. There are some genuinely positive outcomes that could come from these innovations.
Absolutely. And that's what makes me optimistic. Yes, there are challenges and risks, but there's also immense potential to create a better future, a more equitable and inclusive financial system that benefits everyone,
That's a vision worth fighting for.
and one that Visa is actively helping to make a reality.
Okay, so today we've delved into a lot, from Visa's recent earnings to the broader trends that are shaping the future of payments.
We've explored the opportunities, the challenges, the ethical considerations. It's been quite a journey through the financial landscape.
A whirlwind tour, for sure. But one question keeps coming back to me.
Oh, what's that?
We've talked a lot about how Visa is adapting to all these new technologies, but what about the companies that aren't as big or established as Visa? What about the startups, the innovators, the disruptors?
Yeah, those are the ones really pushing the envelope.
Exactly. What are some of the trends you're seeing coming out of that world? Anything in particular catching your eye?
One trend I'm really fascinated by is the rise of decentralized finance, DeFi for short.
DeFi. I've heard the term, but to be honest, I'm not sure I fully grasp what it is.
It is a bit complex, but in essence, DeFi aims to build financial systems on blockchain tech. Cut out the need for those traditional middlemen like banks.
So like cutting out the middleman.
Exactly. DeFi platforms allow individuals to lend, borrow, trade, and invest directly with each other, all using cryptocurrencies and these things called smart contracts.
Okay, now we're getting into some really new territory here. Smart contracts, what are those?
Think of them as self-executing agreements, like they're coded right into the blockchain. They automate the transactions, eliminate the need for trust, and just make the whole system much more transparent and efficient.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get the picture. But why is this such a big deal? What's so special about DeFi?
Well, for one, it has the potential to really democratize finance. It gives people more control over their money, and it could create a more equitable and accessible financial system.
So it's like open banking, but taken to a whole new level.
You could say that. DeFi goes even further by removing the need for any kind of central authority. It's a true peer-to-peer system.
That sounds pretty revolutionary. But isn't it also super risky? Cryptocurrencies are known for being volatile, and that whole DeFi space just feels like the Wild West right now.
Yeah, there are definitely risks. It's a new and evolving space, and yeah, there have been some high-profile scams and hacks. But there are also a lot of very talented people working hard to make DeFi safer and more user-friendly.
So it's a gamble, but with a potentially huge payoff.
Exactly. It might be too risky for some, but for others, it's an exciting chance to be a part of this new and potentially transformative financial system.
Okay, I'm starting to see why people are so excited about it. But how does all of this connect back to Visa? They're a pretty traditional financial institution, right?
They are, but Visa isn't just standing still. They're actually actively exploring ways to use blockchain technology themselves and looking to integrate elements of DeFi into what they offer.
Really? That's surprising.
It might seem counterintuitive, but it makes sense. They're recognizing that the future of finance is going to be more decentralized, more open, more interconnected, and they want to be a part of shaping that future.
So instead of trying to compete with these new technologies, they're actually looking to integrate them.
Exactly. They're embracing the disruption instead of resisting it.
That's a smart move. So what does all of this mean for the future of payments? What's your take?
Well, if I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be here, right? But based on what we see happening now, I think the future of payments is going to be much more diverse, much more personalized, and much more seamlessly integrated into our daily digital lives.
So less about those plastic cards in our wallets and more about creating a seamless experience that blends all these different payment methods together.
Exactly. Imagine a world where you could pay for anything, anywhere, using any currency or digital asset, without even having to think about it.
That sounds pretty amazing, but also maybe a little bit scary. What happens to privacy and security in a world like that?
Those are important questions, and that's why it's so important to have open and transparent conversations about these technologies, to engage in responsible regulation, and to hold companies accountable for their actions.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about building a system that's ethical, that's sustainable, and that benefits everyone.
Exactly. The future of payments is about more than just money. It's about building a world where finance is a force for good, a tool for empowering people, and a catalyst for positive change.
That's an inspiring vision. Thanks for sharing your insights with us today. It's been a fascinating conversation.
The pleasure was all mine. Always great to dive deep into these topics.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious about the world that's constantly changing around us.